Hi guys, welcome back to the channel and welcome to another video. So in this video, I am just going to go through all of my pickups for May 2023. But yeah, let's just get straight into it. So my first and only DVD pickup this month, and we have A Better Tomorrow 2. Yeah, this is a movie from John Woo, and it's a sequel to A Better Tomorrow, also directed by John Woo. And yeah, this is a movie I've been wanting to see for a while because I'm a huge John Woo fan. I'm a huge fan of the original Better Tomorrow. But this seems to be quite hard to get hold of here in the UK. This DVD is literally the best version you can get of it. And yeah, I had to pay a little bit more than I would have liked to for a DVD, but still, I'm glad to have it. And yeah, I really enjoyed this movie. Amazing action sequences, especially that final sequence in the mansion. Yeah, maybe the story is a little bit messy because I know John Woo and the producer of the movie had a bit of a falling out over the direction and the tone of this film. So the story can feel a bit messy in places, but when I watch a John Woo movie, I'm just in it for the action, and this movie delivers plenty of it. So yeah, I would definitely recommend it. And if you haven't seen the original Better Tomorrow, I would definitely recommend that one as well. Right, so onto the Blu-rays now, and first of all, I have a TV show here. I have picked up the first 3 seasons of Star Wars: The Clone Wars. So yeah, I am a huge Star Wars fan. I've pretty much grown up with Star Wars my whole life, but I never really took much of an interest in this show. I don't know why. I think when it came out originally, I think I was about 18, 19, and I think I was kind of past watching like animated shows and things like that. But I've always heard good things about this show. Gives a lot of good backstory to sort of the Clone Wars and some of the characters from that era of Star Wars. So yeah, I'm looking forward to checking it out. I've watched the first few episodes of season 1, and yeah, so far I'm enjoying it. And yeah, if I enjoy the rest of them, I will probably pick up the remaining seasons. But yeah, that is Star Wars: The Clone Wars. Next up, we have a Blu-ray pickup, and this, I believe, was on sale in HMV, and we have Bad Lieutenant, starring Harvey Keitel. Yeah, this is a movie I've been wanting to see for years, but for whatever reason, I just never got around to it. I watched it a few weeks ago, and I enjoyed it, although I was probably a little bit disappointed with it. I think I probably bigged this movie up a bit too much. Harvey Keitel's character is just beneath contempt. He's just a nasty piece of work in this movie. But it's an interesting character study at the same time, and it's well directed by Abel Ferrara, who brought us the likes of The Driller Killer and the classic movie King of New York, one of my all-time favorites. But yeah, this one was okay, but I was a little bit let down by it. But yeah, that is Bad Lieutenant. Right, so next up we have a Jean-Claude Van Damme movie, and this is one that came out about 10 years ago or so, and it is Enemies Closer. So yeah, this is a movie I've been wanting to see for a while, mainly because I'm a huge Jean-Claude Van Damme fan, but I'm also a big fan of the director of this film, Peter Hyams. He directed 2 of what I think are Jean-Claude Van Damme's best movies in Time Cop and Sudden Death. And I was hoping I would get another classic here with Jean-Claude Van Damme and Peter Hyams working again together on this movie. But I was a little bit disappointed with this movie, I've got to say. Jean-Claude Van Damme plays the villain in it, and him and his team have to venture out into the wilderness to retrieve this package full of cocaine. And they end up facing off against the park ranger. It feels very similar to Cliffhanger, but it's also got elements of Rambo First Blood in there, but this movie just feels very cheap, very low budget. The story's not that interesting. The actors that are in the movie aren't that great, with the exception of Jean-Claude Van Damme, who is pretty fun as the villain. But other than that, it wasn't really worth it. I would only get this if you're a diehard Jean-Claude Van Damme fan. But yeah, that is Enemies Closer. Next up, we have a really underrated movie from Walter Hill, and that is The Long Riders. Yeah, I've been after this Blu-ray for a long time from Second Sight. I think it went out of print quite a while ago, and managed to pick it up in CEX for a pretty good price. But this is a Western movie, and it's based on the true story of Jesse James and his gang. And this is just such a fun movie with some great action sequences in it, some really brutal action sequences, as you would expect with a Walter Hill movie. And one thing that I think is really unique about this film is that Walter Hill actually cast real life brothers to play the characters in this movie, because the Jesse James gang was made up of a lot of siblings. So you had like the James siblings, you have the Ford siblings. So he ended up casting the likes of Dennis Quaid and Randy Quaid as two of the brothers. You've got Keith Carradine and David Carradine as two of the brothers. You've got Stacy Keach and James Keach playing two brothers. And yeah, it's just a really unique way of casting the movie. But yeah, really underrated Western. If you like Walter Hill, if you like Western movies, definitely check out The Long Riders. Next up, we have a fairly new release from the Warner Archive label, and we have Straight Time, starring Dustin Hoffman. This was a great 1970s drama about this character played by Dustin Hoffman, who is released from prison and decides to just go straight and try to rebuild his life, but he finds that he just cannot get away from that life of crime that just seems to keep following him. And yeah, really enjoyable character study, great 70s drama with probably one of Dustin Hoffman's most underrated performances. And yeah, I can't say much more than that. It was just a great, compelling drama from the 1970s. But yeah, that is Straight Time. Next up, we have some brand new releases from Radiance Films. And the first one that I picked up was The Bride Wore Black. And this is a French 1960s revenge movie about this woman who decides to avenge the death of her husband at the hands of this gang of men. And yeah, she just goes on this big revenge mission, killing each one of them. It's very, very similar to Kill Bill, but obviously this movie predates it. But it's just a really engaging film from the get-go, just throws you straight into the action. And yeah, I just had an absolute blast with it. Very underrated, little-known movie, but yeah, I would definitely recommend it. But that is The Bride Wore Black. And next up from Radiance Films, we have She Dies Tomorrow. So this is a movie that only came out very recently. I think it came out in 2020. And when I ordered this film, I didn't really know anything about it. But after I ordered it, I decided to just read a few reviews. And I started getting very nervous when I read the reviews for this movie. And yeah, I have watched it, and I have to say, I didn't like this movie. It's basically about this girl who suddenly comes to the realization that she's going to die tomorrow. All of a sudden, she just has this feeling that she's going to die the next day. But as the movie goes on, you find out that other people that she comes in contact with start getting the same fear, and it becomes very contagious. It's a really interesting, kind of cool concept, but the movie is so painfully slow. It's only about 80 minutes long, but it feels about 180 minutes. And yeah, it was a struggle to get through this movie. Very arty, very experimental, which I don't have a problem with. I do enjoy my movies like that, but this one just did not work for me at all, I've got to say. So yeah, it's probably the first disappointing movie from this new label, Radiance Films, but that is She Dies Tomorrow. And the last pickup from Radiance Films this month is Yakuza Graveyard. This is a 1970s Yakuza gangster Japanese movie directed by Kinji Fukasaku, who is probably best known for directing Battle Royale, but he is also very well known for directing movies like this from the 1970s. And yeah, this was a really enjoyable, very cool movie, very relentless with its action, with its story. I don't think it's the best from the sort of the Yakuza movies that Kinji Fukasaku has directed, but I still had a great time with it anyway. And if you like your Japanese cinema from the 1970s, I would definitely recommend it. That is Yakuza Graveyard. Next up, we have a release from 88 Films, and this is a new release, and it is a movie called God of Gamblers. This is a sort of action comedy starring Chow Yun-fat. He plays this guy who just has a knack for being a really good gambler. He's just got the best luck in the world, or he just knows how to gamble and always win. But as the movie goes on, he has this accident and he loses his memory. But the only thing he hasn't lost is his knack to be a good gambler. and he ends up meeting this group of petty criminals who discover his talent for gambling and decide to take advantage of him, basically. It does probably lean a little bit more into the comedy side of things, but there is a great action sequence in a shopping mall that rivals any sort of action sequence from, say, like John Woo. It's a really enjoyable comedy movie and a pretty nice release from 88 Films. It has this kind of like harder slipcover than they usually use. I don't know if they're using it just for this release or whether it's going to be on future releases, but very nice artwork, and yeah, just a great release. But yeah, and a great movie. That is God of Gamblers. Next up, we have a release from 101 Films, and this was on sale, and it's a movie called The Brain, and this is a late 80s horror movie about this TV show that causes people, when they watch the show, to hallucinate, and the hallucinations cause them to act violent or hurt themselves or kill themselves, and it's down to this one character to basically stop what's going on and save the day, essentially. It wasn't a great movie, I've got to admit. I found it a bit slow, a bit boring in places. There's some good creature effects in there, but it's a very schlocky, cheap, late 80s horror movie. But like I said, it's got some good effects in there, but it's probably not one I'll be watching again anytime soon. But yeah, that is The Brain. And another release from 101 Films, again, another item that was on sale, and we have Snowtown. This is a drama about, based on the true story of the Snowtown murders that took place in Australia in, I think it was the early 90s. It kind of follows the characters who were responsible for these crimes. I've got to admit, I was a little bit underwhelmed by this movie. I was hoping it would lean more into the actual crimes themselves, but it kind of concentrates more on the psyche of the characters involved and why they ended up becoming these notorious serial killers. If you like that sort of thing, it's definitely worth a watch, but I was hoping for a bit more in-depth into the actual crimes. I found the movie a little bit slow and a little bit long-winded in places, but it wasn't bad, but it was a little bit of a disappointment for me. But yeah, that is Snowtown. And lastly, I've just got a few 4Ks to show you. So the first one we have here is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory. So yeah, I picked this one up from CEX for a fairly good price. Funnily enough, I think this copy of the movie might have belonged to Andy from Forgotten World of Movies. I was telling him a few weeks ago that I had picked this up from our local CEX, and then he told me that he had very recently traded in his copy. So it's very likely this is the same copy. So Andy, if you're watching, thanks very much for this. But yeah, onto the movie. It's just a classic, one from my childhood that I just absolutely love. It's a magical film. It's very charming. Gene Wilder's great as Willy Wonka. And yeah, I just can't really say anything bad about it. And it looks lovely in 4K. And yeah, very glad to own it. That is Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory on 4K. And lastly, I just have a couple of 4Ks that were on the 2 for 30 offer in HMV. So the first one we have is Pulp Fiction. I don't need to say too much about the movie. It's an absolute classic. It's my personal favourite Quentin Tarantino movie. I've seen it hundreds of times and it never gets old for me. And it looks absolutely glorious in 4K. In fact, it blew me away when I put it on. Like from the opening scene, it just looked absolutely brilliant. And yeah, the movie's one of my favourites. That is Pulp Fiction. And the other movie that I picked up from the 2 for 30 4K offer was The Running Man. This is one of my personal favourite Arnold Schwarzenegger movies. It's just classic Arnie from the 80s. Great action sequences, silly concept. Arnie has got plenty of great one-liners in it. And yeah, it's just awesome from start to finish. Absolutely love this movie. And again, it looks great in 4K. Really glad to have it in the collection. But yeah, that is The Running Man on 4K. So there you go, guys. Those are my pickups for the month of May 2023. Really hope you've enjoyed the video, and let me know in the comments if you have seen any of these movies. Have you picked any of these up? I would love to hear your thoughts and have a good conversation about it. But yeah, I will leave the video there. So thanks again for watching, and I will see you all again very soon. So take care.